Great. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so happy to have you here tonight. I recognize a lot of the names in this room, but just in case you don't know me, my name is Mary Ellen Simoni. I'm the founder of IV Options. So just a very quick history of my life. I was born and raised in California, attended Cornell University, and then started my career in admissions, working for Stanford University, first in California, and then running their undergraduate admissions in Europe and North Africa. And in 2010, my family and I moved to Dubai, and I decided that was the right time to jump to the other side of the desk and started IV Options in 2012. And we've been working with students and with schools for the last 13 years. And I'm a parent of 3 children of my own as well. So I have lived through this process and survived it, to tell the tale. So all 3 of my kids have studied in the US, and my youngest is in her 3rd year at NYU currently as well. I'd love to introduce my fabulous colleague, Anna, as well. You want to give a 30-second background of your life, Anna?
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Anna Manafova. I'm a career counselor with IV Options. I've been with the company for almost 5 years now, a lot of time. And I also am the head of product for Advantageio, the company, the digital branch of IV Options, which we'll introduce in the middle of this session for those of you who are not familiar. I'm originally from Russia. I know the struggles of international students who are applying and getting the visas to the US and studying in the US. I got my master's degree at Stanford University, I have been helping students with university applications and with career search ever since. Actually, my time at Stanford coincided with the first presidency of Donald Trump, the beginning of it. So I am familiar with the situation and with the anxiety. And I'm with you, and I'm going to tell you that it's, once you find the clarity in it, and it's not as hard to navigate as it might seem from the outside. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So just to get started and know who is on our call today, we have 2 quick polls for you. So the first poll is just, when will your child or children graduate from high school if you have a student who is currently in high school? If you can just respond to that poll and let us know, that will help us to shape our conversation a little bit.
Okay, we see 26. 26. Yeah. Great. So we have lots of juniors and the parents of juniors. All right, 27, 25, we do have some seniors, and we'll talk about the seniors and how, to manage the situation right now for the students who do have already hold the acceptance letters from American universities. Okay, we have 25, 28, 27. So we have a very good diversity of parents and the kids. This webinar will hopefully help all of you guys, no matter where you stand right now, and when your child is going to graduate. Let's go to the second poll.
Perfect. Yeah. So the next poll is, are you still planning to send your child or children to study in the US? And your answer could be yes, still planning on it. I was planning on it, but I'm not sure, or we're unlikely at this stage to have our children attend.
Okay, we actually see that a lot of people are still considering it. Right now, it's almost 50-50 between the first 2 choices. Let's see who, who wins. Literally 50-50. Oh my God. Okay, 46% so far. Thank you so much for voting. It's actually very helpful just for us as well to shape our conversation today to make it most effective, productive. For everybody. So we have 46% of people who are saying that yes, US is still our first choice. And now 52%. 52% of people saying that yes, US is still our choice, but we have doubts about it now. And we don't have anybody who said that they considered it before, but right now they're very likely to drop the US. If we have such person, please vote. Let's see. But so far, it's basically the first two options, almost 50-50. Okay, all right. Yeah.
Very helpful.
Thank you so much. So let's actually get started. And my first question to Mary Ellen is, what type of concerns and questions have you heard recently from the parents about the US? I'm sure you've heard a lot.
Yes, that's a great question. And I've had many phone calls and meetings over the past few weeks, especially with my parents of seniors who are very concerned about, their admitted children who are planning to attend universities in the US. And obviously, the biggest concern is around visas. Will my child get their F1 visa? Do we need to have backup options at this stage? How do we think about that? But then there are bigger questions which have been consistently in the past as well, but are exacerbated now, about what happens once they're there. So if my child does go to university in the US, will they have internships? Will they have options outside of the US after they graduate? Are they going to face racism on campus? Are they going to need to be super careful about social media or about speaking their mind? And those are all excellent questions. And I wish I had a perfect answer for those, but we're going to try to address all of those in some way tonight as well. And hopefully just help you have some clarity over the process. So our goal is not to talk you into attending university in the US or sending your children to the US. It's really just to give you clarity and provide some context, because I know there's a lot of, we're hearing a lot of scary stories in the media that may, make families really scared about what can happen in the near future and the longer term future. So we're just trying to give you clarity and give you the tools to make great decisions and to have confidence in your path forward.
Thank you so much. So let's start with the first.
So,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, with the first questions about the visas and the travel, and both for the parents of the current seniors and the parents of the students who will be graduating in the following years. What do you think is going to be happening with visas and the visas of the students who are asking or will be requesting them right now and in the future and on campus as well?
Right. Those are all great questions. And, we've only seen our early decision students at this stage who have applied for and received their visas. And so far, we've seen no change, really. Actually, it's been a very smooth and easy process for our students up until this point. The testing ground really will be with our regular decision students, which are the majority of the students who are applying. But what we've seen so far is it's been very simple to get the I-20, which is the form that is issued by the university saying that they are sponsoring the student. That I-20 goes through the US government. So that could be a first indication of trouble, but it hasn't been at all for our students so far. And then when they get into the F1 visa interviews, it's been a very, very smooth and easy process. So far, we're not seeing any indication that it's going to be substantially different for our students. I did want to share, I found this really interesting when I was preparing for the talk tonight. I was looking at trends over time, and going back to October 2023 through September 2024, which was during the Biden administration's last year in office, so prior to the election of Donald Trump. There were 679,000 visa applications, F1 visa applications issued that year. 279,000 of them were denied, which was a 41% rejection rate. And that number has actually gone down slightly in this current year so far. So if we're looking at the percentage rejection rate, it's actually been slightly lower than that year's rate. Why are students typically rejected for visas? It can be for numerous reasons. Typically what we've seen is either they don't give a clear enough indication that they're planning to leave the US following graduation, or if they have very outspoken political views and they share those in the visa interview, sometimes that can cause trouble. Or occasionally, if they're from specific countries, the process may take longer to go through. But I found that actually quite interesting that it looks like as of now, in terms of getting a new visa, there's actually, it's better news than it has been in the past. The other thing that I found quite interesting is when we think about who might be likely to have an issue with their visas, it's really unclear as of now. Obviously, what we saw in the news early on was, a lot of students who had been active protesters in the previous year regarding Israel and Palestine, that they were specifically targeted, but we're really not seeing that play out recently in terms of which students are having their visas revoked. It seems to be somewhat random. I was reading again as of yesterday, 1,730 students have had their visas, their SEVIS, which is their legal status to remain in the US, that has been revoked. It doesn't mean that they are ejected from the country, but that is the what gives them the legal status to be in the country. But that's out of 1.1 million F1 visa holders. So it is terrible. Obviously, as an American citizen, I don't agree with it in any way, shape, or form. But when we look at it given the total numbers, it's actually a very, very tiny number of students who have been impacted. I was looking at, which universities tend to be impacted. And again, at the beginning, we saw names that where had been very active protests in the year prior. So places like Columbia, Northwestern. But just as an example, University of Michigan, they have over 8,000 foreign students. They've had 22 visas revoked, whereas Northwest Missouri State, which had no protests at all on their campus, they only have 716 foreign students, and 43 have had their visas revoked. So it doesn't seem to be clear why certain universities are seeing that happen. We also are seeing that, as of now, Indian and Chinese students have the highest numbers of visas being revoked, but that's only because there are so many Indian and Chinese students in the US. There are over 331,000 Indian students in the US currently, and 277,000 Chinese, whereas if you look at, say, Canadian students, there are only 28,000 Canadians. So it's not necessarily, indicative at all of racial profiling or anything like that. It's more just a situation of percentages. So again, when we're looking at the numbers, they're very tiny as of now. That's not to say it's not concerning, but the vast majority of students who are studying in the US on an F1 visa have not been impacted or unlikely to be impacted in the future.
Thank you so much. So let's move on to the next set of questions, which is related to job opportunities and whether actually I've heard these questions a lot during the career sessions that I hold with IB Options clients. So by the way, if anybody needs support with their career search and development, we provide Strong Interest Inventory, which is a fantastic tool for career development. I personally love it. I think it's a very powerful tool. And if you're interested in that, please reach out to your IB Options counselor or message us at the info@iboptions.com. We'll actually be sharing the QR code to some of our career tools later on. So stay tuned for that one. Yeah, the question is how the job opportunities and employability within the US do you think, Mary Ellen, is going to be affected by all these changes that are happening?
Sure, absolutely. And just for those of you who are not aware, if a student studies full-time in the US, they will be able to get what's called OPT, which is optional practical training, I believe. And the number of years that they receive of OPT depends on their the classification of their major. So if their major is considered a STEM major, then they would receive 3 years of OPT. If their major is considered non-STEM, then they would receive 1 year of OPT, and that is automatic for every student. Some majors are classified as STEM at certain universities and not at others. Economics is a good example. So most Bachelor of Science programs in economics are considered STEM, whereas Bachelor of Arts may not be considered STEM majors. Psychology is a similar situation. So when your child is looking at a university, it's really important for them to be looking at the OPT and the STEM validation for OPT if they're thinking about staying in the US afterwards. Many, even prior to what's happened recently, many companies it's a big commitment for them to invest in young talent, and so they're not as willing to invest when they know they only have 1 year of guaranteed visa. So typically the 3-year visas are really important in terms of maximizing the likelihood of being hired after graduation within the US. What are we seeing now? Of course, it's too early to tell right now because our students are just now coming out and graduating and looking for jobs. It may be harder to get the OPT. It might get a bit stricter. Although I have to say, when Donald Trump was elected and before he took office, he made several comments about what a shame it was that the US was losing great talent to other countries, and that these wonderful students were coming to the US and studying in their home countries. And he indicated that he might actually loosen OPT restrictions and visa restrictions. Obviously, we are not seeing that play out, but I'm still hopeful that at some point that pendulum may swing back, and we might see even a loosening on OPT and the H-1B and talent visas. For now, it's definitely possible that they may get stricter, that there may be longer wait times for approvals. On the other hand, we may see, if there is a significant cooling by international students in terms of interest in pursuing education and staying in the US, we may actually see fewer applications and therefore higher chances to win the H-1B lottery. So it's really an unknown right now. Definitely what we're seeing already in terms of applications at the graduate levels. So applications for master's and PhD programs, we are seeing a significant cooling from international students who are choosing to go to other countries for their graduate programs. And that's also a result of the restrictions on funding that we're seeing come out of the US government as well. The path to citizenship has always been really complex, and we believe that it will stay just as complex as before. Possibly it will get even worse. But as we know, the US politics does tend to swing back and forth. So we may see a tightening, and it may be followed by a shift towards the left again, and potentially making things a bit easier. It's really hard to know on that front. Anna, do you have any thoughts to add? As someone who has studied and worked in the US prior to coming here?
Yeah, I would say that the pathway to citizenship for sure was pretty tough in there. It's not as easy as in Europe, not as direct. But in terms of the job opportunities and their availability, I would say the powerful thing about the US is that market is so incredibly competitive that once you've been through the cycle of all those jobs applications for your internships over the summer, for your part-time jobs, and then for the full-time job applications, you really build that muscle so well. Honestly, the whole interviewing process and going through the rounds and rounds and rounds of interviews, polishing your resume, and also learning some really important tools not communication skills along the way, and I will talk about it in just a bit. And the tools like, for instance, informational interviews. Those don't really exist, or at least not as popular in Europe. But I found those, this way of communicating and connecting with people in order to learn about potential pathways to be so powerful and so cool. And I would have never gotten to doing them, I think, if I was studying in Europe, because it's just a different, it's a different environment. So yeah, I think it's a tough job market, or the market for applicants, both international students and local students, but then it prepares you for future life so well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking about this in a little while when we sort of shift to some of the benefits that we still see about studying in the US. But one thing that is really unique about the US is the alumni network. And I know a lot of our current students, they've been able to really use that to their benefit, not only within the US, but also in terms of finding internships or jobs outside with international alumni who have studied at that university. So that is definitely something that is unique to the US as well.
Yeah, I mean, aren't we both connected to Stanford? And this is partially how I found you, Mary Ellen. So
That's a very good point. Yep, you
yeah,
used your alumni network when you
yes.
came to Dubai for sure.
Exactly. So yeah. And by the way, one other thing that I've learned from my personal experience in the US is that having a good lawyer is so, so important. So if if you are open to hiring a lawyer for the future, for your child, and to help them navigate that, the pathway to the green card, for instance, it could make a huge difference, really, in certain situations for the talent visas and for financial type of investment visas, etc. So it's actually getting much more easy than just going for the H-1B visas, which is like the direct work-related pathway. So yeah, there are ways, and there are lawyers, and they're very powerful in the US.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely immigration lawyers can
Mhm.
help to make this process a little bit less difficult to navigate.
Yeah, yeah. So let's move on then to the next part, which is the safety and potential, racism on the campus. From my personal experience coming in during the very tough kind of political time between Russia and the US, to America to study back in 2016, 17, I did not feel any pressure whatsoever in the US in general, not only at university campuses, but outside of that. And actually, it was a little bit of a cultural, I wouldn't say shock necessarily, but it was a very much above the expectations, because I didn't feel any judgment. Right, obviously the situations are different. Right now, the situation is very different. It's more than just political, I guess. Issues that are happening in between, the cultures and etc. But what do you think, Mary Ellen, about the current, situation on campus? What do you hear from the students as well who are there right now, and the safety in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know I always, for the past 13 years, I've gotten questions about safety in the US and safety on university campuses. And obviously, there are issues in the US with gun safety and general crime, but those tend to be restricted to specific areas. And what we've found is campuses, even campuses that are in sort of unsafe areas, such as the University of Chicago or University of Southern California, the campuses themselves are extraordinarily safe, and they usually have private, police forces that are there to make sure that their students are safe and feel well protected. So I don't think the safety on campuses has really changed at all. In terms of racism, I have been in touch with some of my Muslim students, especially those who were actively involved in protests last year, and I think they are not feeling any additional racism, or that students or faculty are against them. They're just feeling fear about the potential that their, the posts that they've made on social media or the comments that they've made, that those might come back and hurt them in the future. So that's all that I've heard. I think generally speaking, US institutions are more liberal, open-minded, and welcoming than almost anywhere else in the world. And, you know, it's very clear that US institutions still very much want international students and value everything that they bring to the campus. So I don't think actually that has changed at all, even as we're hearing these stories on news and elsewhere.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So let's move on to the benefits of the US that are still staying, right, and still remaining. And I'm happy to speak about it because both from my personal experience and experience as a counselor and especially career counselor right now, I genuinely see lots of benefits. The first ones being just academic and academic excellence of the US universities and the abundance of resources that they offer to the students. And we're speaking both about the resources like research institutions and the labs and, you know, the resources available for engineers, for researchers, for scientists, for social scientists as well. As well as basically the rankings and the image of the universities, of the US universities internationally, including the rankings that are put together by non-US organizations, right? You will see that the overwhelming majority of top universities are still, or majority, or are located in the US, not in some other countries. So we still have that remaining, and it will stay that way for quite a bit, I'm sure, because those resources are not going away. Even though we do hear, to be fair, we do hear that the funding is getting shut down sometimes and revoked from some universities. I think it's more related to the grants that were specific to support certain type of minorities, etc. But when we speak about the actual like science grants, etc., they are still available, and the U.S. universities are some of the richest universities in the world with the outstanding resources. And outstanding resources as well related to careers and career development. So career centers are very unlike the Europe, I would say, where you need to be proactive to seek the resources from universities. In the US, you're almost being hunted by the career centers and by the organizations and like international student organizations, etc., that offer you all sorts of support, lots of different tools, career fairs, you know, they bring in the employers to campus, the overall kind of focus is on helping you develop the different skills, the soft skills like communication skills, leadership skills, entrepreneurial skills, and this is really powerful. And I think it's really very much like American culture that helps in here. It's not only that the university is consciously, you know, putting effort and money into those types of resources, but it's the culture in general. For me personally, coming from a background that is more, I would say, judgmental, Russian background or Eastern European, you know, the societies that are less, I would say, that don't put as much focus on developing your soft skills and communication skills. I saw so much difference in the American environment where it just doesn't feel like you're being judged every second. To be honest, it was so refreshing, even compared to some of the European experiences. Just that freedom to express yourself actually contributes so much to your development of the soft skills. And I think that's something that is not really evident. That's not something that is spoken about a lot or marketed internationally by American universities. But I think there is a huge power in that, because you really see a huge difference between you coming from like Europe and not only Eastern Europe, like we're talking Germany, France, etc., and then, you know, studying there and getting all those skills and going back, because I think the difference is pretty huge. Then something that we touched upon quickly before, alumni network. It's something that it's again part of the American culture, I think, and it's deeply rooted in American culture. And it's something that stays with you, and it actually gets you more and more benefits every year because as you grow, professionally, so do all of your previously like class X classmates, and you do feel the benefits of those networks, and not only from the alumni networks of the large universities, right? Because everything that I touched upon so far, the academic excellence, the soft skills, and alumni networks, and actually the next one, the future focused education, that is true about universities that are mid-range or even lower ranged, I would say. They do have all of those available as well, and that culture is there as well. And so the last bit is the future focused education. For those of you guys who have been to our previous webinar, I spoke there about the future focused majors, specifically how to prepare your child for the, for the future with AI and the huge changes on the job market. And we spoke about the interdisciplinarity. We spoke about liberal arts education, and American universities are the best at that, I would say, compared to especially many universities in the UK, in Europe, where you stick to one very specific, very narrow major, whereas in the US you have all this flexibility to choose your courses and to choose your major and only decide on it like on the second year of your education, and you can mix and match majors and minors. So in that way, you can build the interdisciplinary course or major for yourself or the program for yourself. And the one last very important part is and let me go to the next slide, is the amount of money actually the US is investing into AI. And I have a QR code for you here if you would like to access this Stanford AI index. It's a very interesting whole portal actually with lots of different statistics about AI, but part of that statistics is actually the investment, the private investment that is put into development of AI by private companies. I think they might also have some data about the government as well, because obviously when you speak about China, government is going to be the biggest investor probably. But the numbers are overwhelming. Like I looked at not only this particular figure that you see here on the left of the slide, but at other figures as well. And they all are, majorly, US is number one in all of them, basically. So leadership in AI investment is a big one. And even though DeepSeek kind of made people revisit this notion of America leading this in this sector, still, if you're not planning to go to study in China, US is probably the best place to go. Yeah, that's my part about the careers and the benefits of US education. And let's now actually move on to the strategies. So if Mary Ellen, you could tell us about how to actually navigate those uncertainties.
Absolutely. And I'd like to address it towards parents of students who are in different year groups. So obviously our parents of seniors, I think the best thing that you can do is try to stay calm and try to help your child stay calm, and just again keep in mind the raw numbers and how even though it is awful for the individual students who are being impacted, we're talking about still just a fraction of 1% of all students who are impacted. The likelihood is that your child will be absolutely fine in terms of the admissions or the visa process. And we are here to help. Anna actually is a wonderful resource and has helped many of our kids prepare for their F1 interviews. So we have lots of resources and paperwork for that as well. So we'll be sure to, to prepare your student well when the time comes. So definitely stay up to date, but do it carefully. Don't get sucked in by the panic that you hear around you in the media and on social media. Also think long term. I mean, for example, I know Colombia has had a lot of bad press lately, and I've had a few parents say, should we rethink which universities we're actually applying to? And my advice is always, taking Columbia as the example, universities, there will be issues that come and go. There may be scandals that come and go, but the strength of these university names will endure. So try not to have a short-term outlook. Think long-term, 5 to 10 year or plus strategy. Also, for our non-US, or sorry, for our class of 2026 and younger students, we would encourage you, if you are truly still very interested in the US, to maximize your chances through early decision applications. And it's interesting because we even saw that play out this year, that many of our students who applied early decision, they were highly successful in those early rounds, whereas in the regular decision round, it was much more random, or it felt much more random in any case. And I think part of the reason for that is that universities are extremely concerned with yield. They want to make sure that if they make an offer to a student, that student is likely to attend. And all statistics show that international students have lower yield rates for many reasons. It could be because they don't get their visa, but it often is because they have applied to multiple country systems and are still trying to make their final decisions between countries. It can be that finances change and the US is no longer an option. Or it can be that a student just decides that it's too far away for them. So whatever the reason, often yield is lower for an international student than for a US national. So the ED applications do make an even bigger benefit for our international students. So consider that. And then we would also say just cast your net wide and keep the US in consideration, but be in backup options. That usually is our advice for any student at any time. So most of our students do apply to multiple country systems, but in this current political climate, we would especially encourage that. So think about the US, but maybe throw out a few applications to Canada or the UK or Europe or Asia, just to keep those other options open.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. So
Yeah.
I'll pick up from the casting your net wide, and this is a perfect transition to Advantageio. And I would like to ask you guys, are you familiar with Advantageio? And I will talk to you about it. I'm super excited to speak about it right now, very quickly. So what is Advantageio? It's actually the digital branch of IB Options. And you can scan the QR code here to go to the website and to check out the courses that we're offering. We are offering basically digital courses about university admissions, and we have courses about how to apply to the universities in the US, and then separately Canada, and then the UK and Europe. And in those courses, we basically put together like all packaged in a very nice structured way, all the information that is needed for you to independently submit the applications to those countries. So you will have not only videos and hours of content about how to submit applications to each one of those countries or country systems, but you also will have lots and lots of additional resources. We have very thorough guides on how to prepare for interviews or how to apply for the visa, and we also have samples of essays. We have links to all sorts of resources that could help you put together very strong applications, and very detailed instructions on how to fill out those applications as well, and even how to increase your chances after submitting your applications. So for those of you who are IB Options clients right now and who work with IB Options counselors, you basically will get all this information from your IB Options counselors. But for those of you who are not yet working directly with IB Options counselors, this would be a fantastic resource, even to get to know, the company and to get to know our whole knowledge base kind of about the university admissions, to pick which country to apply to or country system. to get those initial resources as well. And for those of you who are interested in it, we are offering 50% discount for all the courses, and you can share it with your friends as well. Let them know, especially the friends who are not working with us. Yeah. Let me put this discount also in the chat box so you can copy it as well. Advantage.now. So this is the promo code, and I will give you as well here in writing the website, advantageio.com/courses, and you can see all the courses that are available there. If you have any questions about Advantageio, feel free to message me or message my colleagues from admin team. I'm going to put my email here as well, Anna@ivoptions.com, to keep it simple and still related to Ivy options. So I'm going to be super happy to respond to any of your questions or your friends' questions. Feel free to share it with them as well. And then another thing that I wanted to share is this QR code to the Ivy Options career resources. So recently, in the past few months, we actually have been putting out lots of webinars about career search. We have 5 webinars. By now, it's actually 6 webinars. I'm going to add then the other one to this library. It's already there, but it's not on the slide. But we have the webinars that will help your child figure out, the career strategy, how to even, choose between careers, or whether you need to make that choice, how to make, the career work for you if you have so many interests and you cannot decide on one, for instance. So I'm talking about those questions in the first 2 webinars: create your career path and define your career options as well. And also, the great thing about those 2 webinars is that they have hands-on worksheets that your children can actually work on. And the assignment at the end of those webinars is to go to your parents and speak with them and discuss with them the stuff that you put together in that worksheet. And then another webinar is about the power of LinkedIn, which is also a webinar that you can watch together with your children. And I really encourage the parents to help their children put together a strong LinkedIn account. I have very detailed instructions on how to do that. So please watch that and connect with your child on LinkedIn as well. And let's see, we have lots of other resources. Everything is there. I'm not gonna spend any more of your time. Let's get to the Q&A right now. Okay, so
I know a few of the questions that came through. I think we covered some of them at least, but one question was, what are some of the other universities that a student could look at? And obviously, there are wonderful universities in Europe, in the UK, Canada, in Singapore, Hong Kong, even Australia. So there are lots of options outside of the UK that you could certainly consider. And if you talk with your Ivy Options counselor, we're happy to give you a list of universities that our students have really enjoyed and been able to thrive in outside of the US as well.
Mm-hmm. And we have another question. Let's see. What should we do to understand whether our children are more suitable for America or Europe? For example, my child says he wants America, and we respect that. As parents, what behaviors or qualifications should we observe? That's a fantastic question, actually.
Yeah, that's an absolutely wonderful question. I would say from my perspective, students who tend to thrive in the US really like hands-on learning opportunities. So the US is more about learning by doing, whether you're an engineer or a philosopher, they still have that approach. So many assignments will be case studies or will be, writing or lab work. It's less focused just on the pure exam model that the UK and Europe tend to follow. The other wonderful thing about the US is that it's great for students who have multiple interests or who aren't sure about their ultimate career interest, because the US definitely, you can start. I'm a perfect example. I started as a chemistry major and switched to pre-law and then switched again to economics, and I still graduated in 4 years. So for students who have lots of interests, it's very easy to move, or it's easy to double major or double major and minor. And is there anything else that I've missed that would be an advantage or a way to figure out which is the
Yeah.
better option for a student?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said. And I would also add again that I've heard from a few parents before that who would say that my child is very shy, so they're probably not going to enjoy US as much because it's such an extroverted environment. And while I totally agree, and I think US is a very extroverted country, on the other hand, as we mentioned before, developing those soft skills, communication skills is so much easier there because of the environment that is very welcoming and very non-judgmental in every way and form. Kind of, you can look whatever you want, you can dress however you want, you can, eat that whatever spaghetti in whatever way you want. I don't think there is like that type of kind of a day-to-day judgment that's coming, from the people around you. And it sounds like a minor thing maybe, but I think for the children who are a little bit more introverted or especially shy, it could be a very nice opportunity or like environment for growth. Okay, any advice for the F1 interview? Do parents of a minor have to attend as well? Yeah, that's a
Yes. Yeah. So if your child is under 18, then a parent will have to attend the interview. We have a lot of information about what to bring to the interview, how to answer questions, what are some common questions that are asked. The reality is, for most of our students, it is a 5-minute process. It's a very simple interview. And I think, as I said before, the biggest traps that students fall into is if they don't have a clear path back from the US. So if they indicate that their dream is to stay in the US forever, that can sometimes cause problems. So we always tell students that for those 15 minutes, their dream needs to be that they're going to come back to Dubai and or come back to their home country and work here. And we would be happy to share our other advice with any family as well.
Yeah, the next question we have here, with the Trump administration, what percentage of visas get revoked, and whether the son who is right now in semester 3, I guess runs the risk of getting their visa revoked.
Yes, and obviously it's hard to know what's going to happen. What we are seeing right now is there is a lot of pushback from universities, and I think eventually this is going to go into the courts to decide what is allowable by the president and what is not allowable. So in terms of percentages, as I said, at this stage, it's less than 0.2%, not 2%, 0.2% of students have had their visas revoked at this date. So it's a very, very tiny percentage. It started with students who had arrest records, so students who were arrested for protests or for other infractions. Those have been the ones mainly that have been targeted so far. Where it will go is hard to predict, but again, I think there's a pendulum and there's a lot of outrage that is starting to happen even within the US and certainly within the universities. So we just saw a letter from over 200 university presidents outcrying, decrying this practice and pushing back against it. So I am hopeful that means that it's not going to continue to grow at the same rate that we have seen over the last month.
Yeah, and there was a lot of pushback from the largest universities as well, right? The Harvard started it, Stanford and others are supporting it. So that's a good news, very good news, obviously. Okay, we have another question, quick question, I guess. Is the parent interviewed as well if present during the F1 interview?
No, typically the parent is just a silent witness to be there with their minor child. So the child is still the center of the interview. I don't think I've ever heard of a situation where a parent would have been brought into that. There will be questions sometimes about what parents do for a living, or what their careers have been. But that's more just to try to understand the context of the family. So it mainly is child focused. And when you apply for an F1 visa, normally, yes, it is a 4-year visa. So it goes through the end of your university studies. And if you end up staying on and getting say a dual master's degree, or your studies end.
Yeah, and one thing I would add as well about the visa interviews is that for those of you who work with IB options counselors and have seniors, who are getting their visa interviews, please do push them to look at the visa interview guide. We put it together. And we, update it every year. It's basically a document that the counselors are sharing with their students when they know that the student is going for an interview. And I put together that document. I put all the knowledge that I have about the visa process in the US, and that's a lot of knowledge, and including some minor tips, for instance, how to dress and how to respond to certain questions. And we have a whole list of lots of questions that theoretically could be asked. In reality, there are literally 2 or 3 or 4 questions that are asked during the interview, and it does last only a few minutes, literally 1 or 2 minutes. But especially for the students who have the passports that are a little bit in the amber zone or red zone, like Iranian passports and Russian, etc. I have a whole list of potential questions that could be asked. So please do make sure that your kids go through that whole preparation process. It's a very easy interview, but there are some red flags that you really need to avoid, and they're not evident for a regular person.
Yeah, absolutely. And we make sure that our students are really well prepared for it. So there's no need to be nervous about the interview itself. I think we have time for just a few more questions if you want to pop them into the box. There's a question about obtaining scholarships for specific fields, like biomedical research or medicine. So definitely scholarships for international students. That could be a webinar on its own, because it's a big and thorny question. What we have seen, the students who are most successful in gain scholarships from a specific institution. So, for example, one of our students received a full ride scholarship to the University of Virginia, but she applied for the scholarship. She went through a series of interviews before she was successful for that. So we can help you identify specific universities that tend to be very generous to international students, or have specific scholarships that are just for international students. And it is important, if you're someone who is seeking scholarships, that you construct your list carefully to focus on the universities that tend to be the most generous. Any other questions? I think the other question that we had received ahead of time is, can international students, specifically those with British passports, get jobs after graduating from a top US college? And one thing I wanted to mention, this is actually another, I guess, in the pro-US zone. The UK last year announced that they have a new visa that's specifically for high potential individuals. And those are individuals who've graduated from a top university anywhere in the world. There are 42 universities that have been chosen as producing these high potential individuals. Of those, 20 of the 42 are US institutions. So, and those give graduates an automatic right to live and work in the UK for 2 years, and then that is renewable if they can find a job in that time. So I think they're, even the UK says that the US has, excellent education, and they welcome them into the country. As we said, for students who want to stay in the US, personally, I've seen, we have lots of students who have been able to find interesting internships or interesting jobs after graduation. It is not easy or automatic. They really have to hustle for those, but it's not impossible on the other side.
Oh, actually, I'm going to add one more question that I see in the chat, which is OPT, whether OPT is the work permit that you get during your studies to work an intern during the studies or after. So OPT is the permission and visa for you to work after you graduate from university. However, for the time that you are studying still, there is a CPT, which is curricular practical training, and it's the permit that you can get in order to get all of your summer internships. And the universities typically have all the resources to explain this whole system with CPT to the students, because it's not as direct as OPT. You need to open it wisely at a certain time, and it's going to stay for you for a certain amount of time that you can actually intern over the summers, etc. But overall, that is to say that OPT starts after you graduate. Yeah.
Yes, excellent. And just so everyone knows, at every university that our students have attended in the US, there is a wonderful Office of International Student Services, and they help students with everything from the F1 visas to the CPT and OPT, and managing finances and opening bank accounts and everything else that students will have to do in the US. So you're definitely not alone in it. So our team are here to help you as well.
Yes, so thank you so much, guys, for attending this session. Thank you for all the questions and for all the positive feedback in the chat. It's been a pleasure to discuss the situation with you, and I hope you have more clarity and more tools right now to navigate this uncertainty. In the recent years, we've had lots of those years of uncertainty, including COVID, and right now the whole situation in the US. But hopefully you feel more confident after this session, and have all the tools necessary to make the decisions for your children, or to keep them open for now and see how the situation unfolds.
Thanks so much. Have a great evening.